Dr. Castleberry back with the closing part. Promise, Scout's honor, didn't cross any fingers, but my legs are crossed, of our Communication 2113 video lecture, week 1. It's like, knock on wood. This might be fake wood, but we're going to knock on it anyway, because all the forces of nature are out to prevent week 1 lecture from happening. We've got like Ice Storm 2018, and then all busyness of life, but we're gonna do it, and we're gonna play catch up big time this week, and it's gonna be great. So we're looking at questions with our week 1 readings. Amy asks, of Berger's Media and Society introduction, according to Berger, artists must constantly be thinking about their audiences. Page 3. Would you agree with the Nielsen ratings in terms of accuracy according to demographic factors? That is to say that demographics make one predictable. Okay, so Nielsen catches plenty of flack, right? So the Nielsen company is a traditional way that they monitor ratings, and then that translates into prices for ad revenue, right? And that's a way of generating capitalism, and that's what keeps your favorite shows on the air, or the most popular shows on the air, while the ones that are least watched get canceled, and maybe you love it, maybe you hate it. Nielsen has come under fire from being pretty outdated because they didn't know how to adjust what they were doing for contemporary consumption practices like streaming services, DVR, etc. They were behind the curve for years, but I will say they're catching back up in some ways. They're tracking this now better. Data mining has surefire ways to monitor, to surveil what we're up to. So keep this in mind. All strategic sampling, whether it's Nielsen or Reuters or AP or who knows what, right? All strategic sampling holds the potential for validity, all right, or variability as well. But they help us predict certain outcomes. It doesn't mean it's always right? It's just like any prediction. A prediction isn't a guarantee. It's an educated assessment, right? It's an educated guess, but it's not so much a guess as it is informed by certain data. Okay, and so that's a way to think about Nielsen, and that. Just like we saw with the 2016 elections, right? There's a certain amount of accuracy that the news organizations felt like they could have with confidence that turned out to, in some cases, especially in the largest case, prove inaccurate, right? And so that can depend on what is the poll, what is the sample size, where are you polling, who's answering their phones, who answers their phone anymore? Seriously, do any of you answer your phone? Because that kind of skewed data is how we get to a place of inaccurate prediction. Berger says, Aristotle's writings on rhetoric help us understand communication. How does understanding rhetoric help us understand communication in general? So, back to a point we made earlier in the lecture. Rhetoric is rhetorical analysis, like many of the critical tools we acquire in some of our classes. These are tools. These are tools that help us make sense of information, make sense of messages, make sense of media, okay? And you can think about methods as tools. And these are tools to help us make accurate predictions, or, in the case of criticism, accurate interpretations or informed interpretations, so that we're better able to critique our everyday lives as much as the mass communication that we come into contact with. William has a couple of questions as we get close to the end here. By using the Jacobson model on page 25 of Messages, are we able to share with others who may not have a clear understanding of what a certain message may mean, This is also a response to Amy's question about rhetoric, right? How does rhetoric help us understand communication in general? And this William's question is: are we able to share with others who may not have a clear understanding of what a certain communication message may mean? Exactly. So rhetorical tools, the training that's not only encompasses what we understand as rhetoric, all the available means of persuasion, but also communication theories. Critical cultural theories and methods. These help us understand and explain the phenomenon we encounter so that we aren't just befuddled when something ludicrous or incredible happens. We are able to have an informed opinion, and thus elevates us to that status of potentially becoming what we call opinion leaders. All right, and that's a term we get into in an alternative class down the line. So being an opinion leader matters, just like being able to become or practice being a content creator matters, something we work on through our various exercises in the communication media and ethics major. Final questions. Aaron, full of info. On page 6, Berger says, quote, "We can choose anything we like, but we tend to like certain programs depending on our demographic and psychographic profiles and other variables." Demographic is a pretty common term, but can you explain what he means by psychographic? Yes, psychographic, and if you think about Berger in the context of his experience, his life experience, a little bit of an aged scholar, and researcher and person of intellect, whatever, writer. He's often writing about media. He's often writing about the sort of convergence between media texts and advertising and these things. And so psychographic comes to us as a kind of, it's used as a marketing term, okay, in market research. There's a couple of related terms that include things like when you're performing market research, this helps you determine consumer lifestyles as well as consumer profiles. And you think about profiling, you think about social media, and you always fill out a profile, and it's kind of like, why do I have to fill out so many boxes before I can activate that account? Well, because they want that, and they need that information, right? It's the profile information oftentimes that the companies are after. They can sell that data about you, about your demographic, and to the right kinds of advertisers. So all of a sudden, Erin's getting, Facebook patch messages trying to, convince her her life is absent without the, Game of Thrones Monopoly game, right, or something like that, right? She needs a new ugly Christmas sweater that is about the TV show Fringe, or something, right? So a definition, base definition that I retrieved online defines psychographic as the study and classification of people according to attitudes, aspirations, and other psychological factors. Okay, so that's that difference there. It's about a way of pulling that demographic data. Looking at the topics in the book and the relationship to James Bond seems like an interesting route. The character probably isn't quite as popular or well known now as he used to be. Do you think this will affect our comprehension of the topic if we're not as familiar with 007? It's interesting. A colleague just made a similar comment, and not necessarily about James Bond or even the spy genre, but they made it about popular culture in general. We were having a conversation, and this point came up that we're losing these central focal points, arguably, in culture, where we no longer share a central point of reference with other people. Okay, something to consider, and think about even the way they shift these narrative arcs in Star Wars now, whereas used to, for decades, you knew the central characters and motif, even if you've never seen Star Wars, is you absorb it by osmosis, popular culture by osmosis, right? but now they're cycling in all these new waves of characters in different directions, and it's not going to be the same, right? People aren't going to recognize those stable iconographic figures any longer. And perhaps we're inching closer to that with a James Bond, although I think everyone recognizes and can reference one, but maybe hasn't seen this, or sort of celebrated, or wallowed in the popular culture of the Bond franchise the way that maybe they would have in years past. Ah. Okay, a Berger, with regard to messages, Berger says on page 20, some communication scholars argue that decoding communication aberrantly is the norm, end quote. Do you agree, disagree with this? Let me tell you, I went back and read it for context again, and that sentence is so special that here's what I've decided. That Berger wrote an intentionally perplexive sentence there, and that's part of the point, right? That's part of the point he's making. So that's some next level clever writing, right? Umberto Eco is a novelist I've been meaning to check out. Oh, you mean have you been checking him out on my bookshelf? Dun dun dun. Okay, so this is like I unlocked some, mystery. I was hoping that it would open to the back room, but it didn't happen. Will we be discussing him anymore in this course or program? His role as a semiotician. Let me say this is a teaser. Nothing set in stone yet, but for you comm majors, be on the lookout. And maybe this can be a good sign for you or a bad sign, right? See what I did there? The special topics in communication course. It's going to be a 3,000 or 4,000 level class, perhaps coming maybe late next fall. May focus on semiotics specifically, and Umberto Eco is definitely a key figure along a short list of names that have played pretty prominent roles in semiotics, right? And so that we didn't lose everyone, so this didn't become like a one-to-one Garrett and Aaron conversation here, a talk between semioticians. Semiotics is understood as the study of signs and symbols, right? So this is also an area of critical analysis. If the general goals of cultural studies are to, quote, bring heightened attention to the beliefs and practices implicitly enforced by particular literary acts of praising and blaming, end quote, and to, quote, understand the multiple ways in which identities are formed, experienced, and transmitted, end quote, can you discuss what some of our specific goals will be in studying media culture? I can. But we are going to let it unpack slowly, right? We're going to drink it in, man, over the next few weeks. But that is definitely the kind of question we should return to, and you all should not be afraid to ask those questions and more. Look forward to diving into future content. We're going to catch back up. We're going to get to those week 2 discussion questions this week also, and have those posted up for you to be able to enjoy. So please put lots of thought and focus, or as much as you can, budgeting time accordingly, into those assignment 1 discussion questions, and we'll look forward to engaging them here in our COM 2113 Media Culture and Social Influence Asynchronous video lecture.